Welcome, podcast friends, to Women Talk Construction. I'm here today with Angela Gardner. She's my co-host, business development director at Hill Electric. She's a mom, a leader, a businesswoman. And if you're new, welcome. If you love our content, please share it on your favorite listening platform. Thank you for supporting our workforce. And let's get started and introduce a special guest that I got to meet at LBM Strategies. Jason Blair from Towel Building Centers is with us today, and I was so impressed with him when he spoke at LBM Strategies in 2023. It was cool because I spoke first, and when he came behind me, just the things that he said really drove home the conversation that I was having as a woman in our industry. And we appreciate that so much. If we don't have men standing beside us, we can't make this industry a viable option for all women. And I'm just really excited to have Jason on. And the way he leads is there's no magic sauce. It was not intentional. He is providing a safe environment in our industry for women and men, actually, in a very natural way that anybody can just pick it up and work with it. So we really are excited about having you on today, Jason. Thank you for being here. I'm going to get started right away because we got a lot of content we want to cover with you. You really are a leader in our industry on how to just make women feel comfortable in the workplace in this industry, which isn't always easy. So I'm going to start out with, what does a normal work day look like for you?
Yeah, you bet. Well, thank you, Christi and Angela, for having me on. I'm excited to be here. And so a normal workday for me, this is my first role as a CEO or first time being a CEO. And one of the unforeseen or the things I didn't see coming was my day is always a mile wide and an inch deep. So the number of topics that I get to move through every day is so varied. And that's different as you come up in this industry and you're very focused on one segment. My role previous to this, I was a vice president of merchandising and marketing. So my day was consumed by those two topics mostly. And today my world is very broad. So, my normal day, I don't know that there is a normal day. There's not a pattern to my world. I do my best to not let my calendar control my life, but I could be here at our office in Washington. I could be out visiting stores. I could be out at an industry event. Right? It's just whatever is the necessary piece throughout the week that needs to happen. I wish there was a little bit of repetitive nature to it, but there's not a whole lot. I mean, we have some standard meetings throughout the week and whatnot that we keep in place is to make sure that we're communicating on a normal and a regular basis. But I wish I had a more elaborate story there, but I don't.
Well, congratulations, first of all, of being a CEO.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like everything's important when you're a CEO. Is that correct? There's no aspect that you get to veer away from.
Yeah, and everything is equitably important, or it needs to be equitably important while you're working on that topic, right? You have to balance your time and make sure you're focused on the right things. But you've got, whether it's finance or it's HR or it's operations or it's BIS or whatever it might be, you've got to make sure that when you're in a CEO seat, when you're dealing with that topic, that you're all in on that topic. And then for me, it's been a bit of a learned trait to learn how to turn it off and then turn it back on for the next topic. And then I've learned a lot about some topics I hadn't a lot of exposure to previously in my career that have been really nice for me.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of topics, Angela's got a great question for you because we're going to dive in and find out how you have so many women on your team.
Yes. Well, it's great to talk to you, Jason, finally, because I heard so much about you from Christi when she came back from that conference. So I get to meet you in person, virtually. So I'll get us started. And this is such an impactful question that you're going to get ready to answer. What proactive steps did you take to achieve a workforce where 70%, let me say that again, 70% of your staff are women in a traditionally male-populated industry? How did this diverse team contribute to your successes or to the successes of the overall organization?
And for clarity for the listeners out there, 5 of my 7 direct reports are women,
Yes.
and 25% of our overall workforce of about 600 inside of TAL are women, which is, from what I understand, is way over indexed for the norm in this industry. Part of it was inherited. The CEO before me had done a nice job of building a diverse staff, and then we pulled that forward. The like you mentioned earlier, like, to me, there wasn't this outward intent that I want some number of women on my team. I really just don't think that way. What I wanted was the best people for the current situation of this company on my team.
Yeah.
And so that's really the focus, has been that. Now, along with that is creating an environment where everyone is welcome at the table. It doesn't, like, that part, it isn't about whether you're male or female. It's about, can you do the job? Are you the right person for the role? But I also do like the diversity that it brings to the table. To me, as a leader, managing each person is very different. One of the things that I've learned over time is to really be mindful about, when you're about to, particularly like a one-on-one situation, when you're going to manage or lead somebody, being really thoughtful about how you lead that individual person. And then in addition to that, leading women and men is different. It's just a different experience that happens. And so for me, I think it's made me a better, and what I would term as softer leader. And I don't mean that I mean that in a very positive.
And that's not a
way.
bad thing, right?
I'm not. Yeah, I have, as I've grown and I've become less of a type A brute, because I grew up in this industry. I worked all kinds of positions, and in being softer as a leader, I think, or being more passionate as a leader, compassionate maybe as a leader is the right word to use there, has created this safe space for anyone to be successful, regardless of who they are.
Yeah, that's really important. Well,
It is.
a lot of times we have a black and white, right? There's no gray when it comes to how we're going to communicate. And that's not true, right? There are a lot of women out there like myself who doesn't like shopping, doesn't like doing girly things. Like I just don't, right?
Yeah.
So I'm more comfortable with the male crowd when it comes to like having fun, because we talk about things I like, football and hunting and, that kind of thing. And so that is a gray area, and it feels weird when you feel like you have to be in the white or the black. I'm just using that as an analogy.
No, I think it's a great analogy. Like, we have fun with some of those things. So when you're in an environment where there's a female in the room who doesn't like sports but likes to hang out with the guys, we'll jokingly, in our group, we'll call it sports ball. Like, because then it's non-definitive. We could be talking about baseball or golf or football, whatever. We have fun with the nomenclature around it, and
cool.
make it a safe environment, so it's not like the 2 guys go off in the corner and talk about
Right.
the basketball
That's
game
so
last
nice.
night, right? We're going to talk about all of it, and then we have some fun with the like, if we're going to go do something as a group, or you're out with a vendor, right? And the vendor says, "Hey, I'd like to take you golf." And some of our joke is, but some of us would like to go shop at Neiman Marcus instead. So we have like fun with the.
Oh, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, right.
Second.
We have fun, like, not that we would do that, but we have fun with the environment, are very open about that. We don't all like to do the same things, and in this industry, sometimes you get trapped in this.
You do.
We got to go play golf,
One
or we got to
lane.
go hunting, or we got to go to a sporting event. There's lots of other things out there that we have to think about, and we're not going to continue, say that we're great at that yet, but we talk about it, which I think is important. And then you create this
That's the first
environment where
Exactly.
somebody doesn't feel left out of the, oh, well, I don't play golf, so therefore I'm not going to do. And that works both ways, whether you're
It
male
does.
or female, right? Like, this whole idea of let's be inclusive in a fun way,
Right.
with everyone that's on the team.
So it's funny because Angela's teaching me like the brand of clothing
Nice.
because
like
I have no clue, right?
See, I'm the
So-
opposite of her in certain respects.
We are the opposite, right? She did not grow up loving football, hunting and fishing and riding dirt bikes and racing mud jeeps. She grew up, in a totally different atmosphere. But the point I was trying to make here is the fact that your leadership style is the way it is. Those of us that are, white, black, or gray are all going to feel comfortable.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you're going to find men out there, right, that don't love hunting and fishing. My daughter's best friend, he really, like, it's like pulling teeth to get him to go to a sports event, or he's just an artistic kind of guy, but he's still a guy.
Yeah.
Right? But he doesn't communicate the same as the men that I worked with for 20 years of my life. So I think it's really cool because that what you are doing is creating a culture that everyone feels included, and that's really the point we're trying to make, right? That's the conversation we're having.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
tell me about, okay, so one of the things that you talked about on the stage that I want you to share just a little bit more about is you've got a special program that you really like. I think it's called the Oz Principle.
I do.
And you implemented that for accountability, but found that that particular program might have been part of your success story with the attraction of female talent. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah. So I've been fortunate enough to in a previous career, I went through the Oz Principle training, and the Oz Principle. The point of the book is creating a culture of accountability. And here at Tal, we have a great list of core values, and one of them happens to be I am accountable. So there's this great tie-in
Nice.
with all of this, and I was able to see the success in previous opportunities of leveraging the book, the Oz Principle. And when I got here, sat back and spent some time learning and understanding the organization, and then picked some pieces and parts out of the Oz Principle that felt like they would be a good fit to help us move forward as a team. And we've taken those and continue to adjust and modify those over time for the crowd that we're training on. But one of the pieces of that book is called the results pyramid. And the idea behind the results pyramid is that in our lives, our experiences at the bottom of the pyramid, they drive our beliefs. Our beliefs drive our actions, and our actions drive our results. And if you think about the second slice, which is the belief portion, is I would contend and I would believe that I don't just believe, I know that I can't change your beliefs. I can't tell you, hey, you should like chocolate ice cream when you don't like vanilla, or you should like a particular sports team just because you moved to the town, right? That's not, and in this industry, I can't make you believe that, I can't tell you need to believe that we're inclusive, but I can provide an experience where you are, where I can begin to form beliefs, and I can create that environment where we continue to reinforce that over and over again. And the beyond the culture of accountability piece, what I've worked on utilizing that for my team is making sure that we provided the right experience for everyone to have a voice. So I said everyone is welcome at the table earlier, but just because they're welcome at the table doesn't mean that they necessarily have a voice or they feel like they have a voice. They do have a voice. In my mind, they have a voice.
Right.
How do you create an environment where everyone does have a voice? And I'll be honest, that is components of having worked with some really great women in my past. I've worked with there's some key folks along the way that really helped me be successful, that I would say believed in me before I believed in myself.
Yeah.
And so that I've been able to learn from and flip that a bit, and really lean into believing in women in this industry. In this case, believing, and that wouldn't necessarily just have to be in that case. If there was a man in the room that needed to believe in, I would do that. But in this case, there's been opportunity here, and creating an environment where when you get in that boardroom and you have that weekly team meeting, it's really easy sometimes for that male-female role to really start to stand out, right? As a man in this industry, part of how I got where I got to was by winning like lots of little races along the way.
Yeah.
Being super aggressive and being that guy that, I think back in my career, I've thought about what would I tell my younger self. Well, one of the things I would tell my younger self is you don't always have to be the hardest working guy. And I don't mean that from you don't have to be the person that works 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to be an overachiever every day.
Yeah. Right. And so there's that. And then you get into these leadership roles, and it's sometimes hard for that personality in those rooms, or those personalities will just stand out. And then people tend to overtalk. Overtalking has been a struggle for me my whole career, but
Me too.
but like creating an environment and then being as a leader, being very intentional and planned, and saying the people in the room that are less likely to be the first one to raise their hand to speak, why don't I call on them first? And why don't I continue to do that and do that and do that? So then think about it. I'm creating an experience where their voice is like the first, not the last voice, not the add-on at the end, setting the tone for the discussion. They start to understand and believe, like I believe in them, that their original thoughts, their original unbiased opinion of whatever it is we're going to talk about is really important and really sets the tone. And sometimes it's really important to hear human resources perspective on an operational challenge.
Absolutely.
They're just going to have a very different perspective of it, right? And so it's great. It's not always right. It's not always wrong, but it's really interesting here, and vice versa on that. So that's that environment that we worked hard to create here.
And that creates a successful environment and a successful organization too. I feel like that we need to mention that women can do the same for women. So, you know, when I hired Alex, you know, she had some challenges and she was super quiet and she didn't believe in herself. And I was able to do the same thing for her. So it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female, you still need to notice those folks that are in the room. They're there for a reason. You've brought them to the table because you believe in them. Let them know you believe in them. Let them have the opportunity to talk, even if it's not always right and you don't always implement that project or that idea. It just gives them self-confidence. And I think I've created a monster. She's more self-confident than I am. And it's really cool to see, just how a little bit of encouragement and a lot of, paying attention will do for, a team.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a balancing act there where you can, sometimes you have to pull back on folks too, right? Especially sometimes women in this industry have had to fight so hard to get to where they're at that they can tend to be overly aggressive in particular situations, and coaching through that and saying, hey, like you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. You don't have to be incredibly demanding of whatever you're asking for. Like, don't start there. Don't start at the top. Like, let's learn how to, you know, let's start at a different point. And you'll find that instead of, because that can tend to, what I found in this industry is really strong women, like really bold women tend to shut down the rest of the audience, just like a bold man can too. So, you know, and some of that's cultural and respect and like, oh, I'm not going to say anything now mentality, but working through and softening that. And then, like, I love the environment we've created here. Is part of one of the other parts of the Oz principle is this creating an environment where you do feedback in a way that's non-threatening. So it really creates this platform where you can then, that meeting happens and something doesn't go well, you can then have a conversation afterwards where you give some appreciative feedback and some constructive feedback in a way that's non-threatening. And then that person that, you know, over-indexed one way or the other hears that, learns that, you know, starts to work hard on creating that. But it's created an environment where I think about my executive team and then the rest of my direct reports. We have this really fun environment here where there's not, you know, not any backstabbing. There's not somebody trying to climb over somebody, push somebody out of the way. It's a fun world that I believe that open environment and allowing everybody those voices at the table has really helped.
That is awesome. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. So we are going to have you back on because there are some other things that we're going to talk about, right? That I feel like are really important to our audience. But for today, thank you so much for like sharing where you're at and what you're doing and how you're making a viable path for women in our industry. But tell the audience how to get a hold of you if they want to meet you, if they want to know more about you, if they want to just follow your leadership style. How do they get a hold of you? How do they follow you? How do they just connect with you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm easily searchable. Jason Blair, CEO at Tao Building Centers. You can send me an email, jason.blair@taobuildingcenters.com. Happy to have conversation. I love talking about this topic, and I really appreciate you guys having me on today. This is fun.
Thank you, Jason. We can't wait to have you back on shortly. Thank you so much.